This trip really was nostalgic for me. My very first mine site visit as an investor or a full-time investor was to Rambler at the time in the Green Bay project. And now visiting it almost to the date, 8 years, is remarkable. So we're in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. It's just south of Deer Lake. The idea is to get a better idea of what's going on in West Newfoundland, part of the island. Not only to gauge mining's impact, but just see what's happening in terms of employment, the health of the economy, and getting an idea of what life looks like out here. It's something I like to do personally wherever I go on site visits, or even traveling in my personal life, get an idea of what life is like on a daily basis for people out here. So it's a big eye opener, especially when you can see, probably this has got to be about the biggest city in West Newfoundland and what impacts mining might have on it. I think, most of all, going back to Newfoundland's always meant something a little bit more than the other places in Canada that I've been. I think because it was the first. I think because of the tie with my wife's family and being from Newfoundland. I think with the ties to companies like Altius, whom I respect and have been an investor in for a long time. All these things sort of come to the forefront. And when I travel here, when I come here, when I talk to the people, there's so much of me that I think is reflected in that society, whether it's hunting and fishing, that sort of outdoor lifestyle, and then of course that tied to mining. And so to me, it's kind of a deeper connection that I have. The first trip that I had in 2018, I didn't take enough time to see some of the surrounding communities when I came here. I basically landed in Deer Lake and I ended up in Bay Verte, and I did a couple of mine visits to Pine Cove and to Green Bay. Right now we're heading to Rocky Harbor. It's basically within the confines of Gross Moor National Park. It's a place that I visited back in 2018 when I was here doing a site visit. And the vistas are incredible through the national park. And Rocky Harbor in particular, because it's right out on the ocean, on the coast, from a visual perspective is incredible. So we're gonna go take a look out there, and then we'll be on our way to Bay Verte. The biggest difference, I think, between the two trips probably is in me. My ability to analyze projects, to recognize the strengths versus the weaknesses. Looking back to 2017, I would say it was still very much green. Like the comparison of myself as an investor from then to now is, you almost can't measure it. I'm so much better at what I do, and I'm more confident. Okay, I'm here with Crispin Pike, VPX for FireFly. Crispin, where are we and what is this?
We're located around a kilometer away from the Ming mine. This was the actual original discovery of copper and gold in the region in the early 1900s. So a prospector, was banging on some rusty rocks, made the discovery, and it was many years later that the actual Ming mine itself was discovered. But these are the rocks that ultimately got us onto the peninsula and the deposits to be identified. There's copper and gold, a range of copper and gold grades in these outcrops in and around the area.
Okay.
But this isn't the same as what would be in the mine, but this is just in the general vicinity. The project area itself is about 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers. We have multiple projects that target the same rocks, but right here, what we call Ming Regional, it's about 10 by 10. So it's the beginning of a journey for discovery, and we have a lot of advantages with modern tools and techniques and the team that we've put together to kind of drive the exploration and the discovery in the area. So it's an exciting time to be here.
It is. Well, let's take a look at these rocks. What are we, VMS mineralization? Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so a VMS deposit is a volcanogenic massive sulfide, which basically means it's a base metals deposit that forms on the seafloor through volcanic activity. What is happening is you have hydrothermal fluids venting onto the seafloor. So it's hydrothermal vents, and all that fluid is what carries the metals. What we have is one of these deposits that's been preserved in the ancient rock record. And what we see is the massive sulfide, of course, that has the high copper and gold grades. But all around it, we see this halo of alteration from all these fluids moving through the seafloor. And that's what we're seeing here now. That's what we see. That's the rust in the rocks and the bleaching of the rocks. We can get that up to a kilometer away from the deposit. So that's what our geologists look for. So we can vector in on the mineralization. We combine that with our geophysics and our geology to target and find the next VMS deposit located in this camp.
VMS deposits, do they cluster?
Yes, it's pretty rare to see one of these copper gold rich VMS deposits form on its own. So of course here close to Ming, there's 3 additional past producing mines that were in production during the 60s and 70s, and they were mined at very shallow depths. So we're actively exploring the extensions of those deposits, but also looking for new undiscovered deposits as well. Ming mine isn't a standalone deposit. This is a mineral camp. So there's a lot of district scale potential for discovery in here. And these rocks that we're in right now, there's very similar rocks elsewhere on the Bay River Peninsula.
So looking at over the next, let's say 6 to 12 months, what do you have planned on the exploration property?
We really started the regional exploration in 2025. So we've put the team together. We've been busy. We've had 2 drills turning since the beginning of the year. We've done a lot of airborne geophysics. We have a great hybrid here at FireFly, where it's an Australian ASX listed company. We have some input for Australia, we have Canadian geologists, we have Newfoundland geologists, and it's a great mix because we all bring different expertise and different perspectives. So I kind of think of our exploration methodology as a hybrid between the Aussie and the Canadian exploration methodologies.
So when you go down to mineralization, what I've heard is that VMS deposits can have similar signatures. And so does that hold true? Is that how this works? Like if the mineralization is somewhat similar to what the Ming mine is, if you know sort of what the VMS signature or geophysical signature is for that you can parlay that to other parts of the property?
Totally, that's exactly right. And what we've been doing is doing detailed studies on all the past producing areas. So in our portfolio of our land, we have eight past producing mines. So we have a great area to kind of go and train our systems to see what we're looking for. And it's not just in the geophysics, but that's also in the geology to get our eyes into the rocks. And just to learn from the known mineralization so we can identify it when we see it in our data sets. Yeah, so this is an outcrop. So this rock is actually in place. And you can see this is where the sulfide mineralization associated with the VMS comes right to surface. And you can see the sulfide minerals here and all the rusting, oxidization, and all the bleaching from the fluids that have been moving through.
Am I seeing chalcopyrite in this?
Yeah, so these are the sulfide minerals, and that's what's creating all the rust that you see on the surface here. Yeah. And when you look right at the rock, these are the sulfide minerals that we see at Ming, which is pyrite and chalcopyrite mainly, and the gold and the copper are related to the fluids that came through this rock. And it's not just the sulfides, but you can just see the whole rock has been altered by the fluids that have been coming through, and those are the metal-bearing fluids. So a great way to kind of measure the grade of these surface occurrences is to get a saw and cut down the rock, and then you chip it out. And it's kind of like a poor man's drill hole. You get grade horizontally, but you also get a distance as well.
Right.
So you get a grade over a width.
Yeah. It's great to see another one back here.
Yeah. And these would be historic channels that would have been taken.
Right, and so this is oxidation too, right? Like that's what the rock actually looks like.
Exactly. So all this rust is the sulfides weathering out. And then when you break off the fresh piece, you can see the sulfide minerals themselves.
That's great. FireFly's main focus right now is rightly on gaining a better understanding of the Ming mine ore body. That ore body is what provides the project with its critical mass to be put back into production. That said, its exploration potential, the potential for discovery, is what really can move a share price. With over 300 square kilometers of land now consolidated, which is underlain by the right rocks in a number of historic mine sites, to me the potential speaks for itself. And really, when the critical mass is already taken care of, you realize that the hurdle for additional tonnage is much lower than the usual exploration setting. And that's a powerful spot to be in. Can you talk to us about what we see here?
Well, right now we're currently down 38 meters and we're just getting ready to start another run, a 3-meter run. So basically what you see is the guard system we have put over top of the head. So as it comes down, there's no chance of any guys just reaching in over or grabbing the rods or getting hooked up in the rods or anything. And then we have this sliding one on the side here, so the helper's completely protected on that side at all times, right?
Right. How many meters can you do in a day?
Depending on the rock and so on, right? I mean, you get into some nice soft rock, I mean, you can get upwards of 100 plus meters, right?
Right, okay.
What's the actual value of the deposit?
One of the bigger advantages of doing a site visit is understanding a mine site's accessibility. Is there a paved road? Is the power truly nearby? Can a workforce go home at night? Or is the camp the only way forward? I think it's intuitive for most to understand that if workers can go home each and every night and not have to be flown in and out, that's an ideal situation. Not only that, but the impact to local communities is that much more apparent. Clearly, a town or towns that are close to a mining operation can build themselves around it. This trip in particular, because it relates back to that first site visit trip that I did myself, is that much more meaningful. And being back here, the nostalgia of reflecting on what it was in 2017, what it meant to me, and how it set off a cascade of events for the last 8 years. My life was forever changed, and it sounds maybe a little bit deeper for a site visit thought, but having left a full-time 9-to-5 job in 2016 and to start this by myself, it's such a meaningful part. And then of course to be doing field notes now means that much more. The impact of the Ming mine restart will have a lasting positive effect on the Bayvert Peninsula for decades to come. That I have no doubt of. My bet is that Newfoundland's children who've left the island to pursue work in the oil fields on Hibernia or in Voisey's Bay will be finding their way back home. And that's a really good thing.
This is the map here. We got Bayvert, the town of Bayvert in here, and Ming's Bight right up here. And this is where our mine is currently at, and we're targeting these green rocks, which are the volcanic rocks. Okay. Yeah. And so the VMS deposits like that, they exclusively would be in the green, and it's like is it the contact between that and another rock? Is that what's important, or is it just plainly the green? Yes, they can be within any section of it. It doesn't need to be at the contact of the rocks. It can be at the contact or within the main section of the green rocks. And looking at this peninsula, this is called Bayvert Peninsula? Yes, yeah. Do all the green rocks represent potential, or is it just in this area? All the green rocks represent potential. So we're all up in here, we're all going down here, and we go all the way out here. And correct me if I'm wrong, when FireFly first acquired the Ming mine,
that's not the land package they had. You guys have further consolidated this land package.
Yes, yes. We just had just around here at the start, and we acquired a lot more land encompassing a lot of that volcanic rock.
So I know that the process, compared to the prior Ming mine process, which was like around 1,000 tons per day, you guys are projecting to do something, 4 or 5 times larger.
Yeah.
Does that permitting process, does that encompass that change in production, or is this something that's gonna have to be scaled as you go?
Yeah, so it is an upscaled project that we did permit. We recognized that the production rate previously for the past operator didn't really fit the deposit, and even the logistics with the process plant and the port where it was situated didn't make a lot of sense. So for the upscaled project, we're looking at about 4,800 tons per day for the project, and that's what was included in the EA for the project. And then we also looked at a port that's approximately 6 kilometers north of the deposit. So we're shipping, instead of 120 kilometers south of the deposit, it's a short distance to get to the port, just north of here, 6 kilometers. That was also included in the EA for the project and the permitting. And then instead of having a process plant down the road, 40 kilometers or so, we're looking at constructing a process plant on site. Again, logistics makes a lot more sense, having everything proximate to the deposit, and also reduces our carbon footprint.
So you've had a very young career so far, but you've worked with some of the best people in the business. What attracted you to FireFly?
Yeah, so as you recall, Brian, I was on the board of FireFly since, I guess, March 2024. So while I was working at G Mining Ventures still. And so I got a look kind of behind the scenes and, got to know the team, and they got to know me. And, when the team listed on TSX at the end of 2024, we very quickly realized that really, this is the growth of the company. The future is in Canada, and, we just wanted to expand the footprint in terms of management. What attracted me to the team is that, obviously I did have a year of essentially almost like a two-way interview with them, and we really got to know each other and like the way that we work. And I really was very impressed by the professionalism of the team, just, all the way from, front office staff to, the most senior management.
For me, regards to the mining, it's right now we're in the phases of their drilling and operations they're not in production, but there's quite a bit of positivity coming from what we hear. So hopefully within the next little while we'll see production and things starting to pick up, because this community was built on mining. We had a lot of good amenities here back in the day. We had a swimming pool, we had a curling rink, we had a kin center. It would mean wonders, because like I said, right now we're struggling. Our population is declining. We have an older population, and if you want a future, or young people in the mining industry is what's gonna make this town a home for a lot of people in the coming future, right? So like I said, I hope that it goes to its full potential and we get back to the glory days of where, I can't say money was at a disposal, but people seeing things coming in and growth happening within the community.
My name is Gus Simbanagavi. I'm the VP Operations for the Green Bay Ming Mine project for FireFly, based here in Newfoundland, Canada.
Yeah, my experience goes back, way back, over almost 25 plus years ago. I did most of my experience in Southern Africa, across most of the Southern African countries. My career as a mining engineer, started off on the gold mining industry, and I came to this project on the tail end of Rambler. I think the last 6 to 10 months of the operations. That's when I was brought in, just to bring in the experience from an operational perspective on the operation. So the mining method is it's underground mining, purely driven by the geometry of the ore body. Like anything else in mining, the geometry drives the methods to be used. So our deposits pretty much does not outcrop to surface. It starts from about 280 meters and it goes down deep for almost now, with what we know, up to almost plus 2 kilometers down deep, which is quite extensive.
The beauty about this project is that it is not a typical greenfield project. It's a brownfield project, meaning that there's already existing infrastructure in place, and this is a typical good example of the infrastructure where we already have, say, maintenance facilities available in place and pretty much ready to go into use when this project starts up.
Yeah, so maintenance shop, power, you've got a decline already, a shaft. You guys are in an enviable position.
Oh yeah, I always say that I think even as a professional, projects like this don't come too often, right? so yeah, pretty excited, and not just me, I guess the team as well. The team is pretty excited about seeing this place going and starting up again. Yeah.
And so, what do you think about the surrounding community and its impact when this does become an operating mine once again? How is that going to impact the local community and the Bayvert Peninsula altogether?
I think you can wrap it up into a couple of facets. I think the first one, of course, which every community is interested about, is opportunities for employment. So this, as I mentioned earlier on, is like we're talking of 400 long-term jobs alone, and 400 jobs for a community of this side. That is significant job opportunities available. And with 400 jobs, it's not just the people who are on site, it's how much economic contribution they're going to bring to the area. I mean, on average, we've got 12, I think we're going to have 12 communities around this property within let's call it a 30 minutes to 40 minutes drive from the mine. And those communities are going to see the impact of those 400 people earning income. That means grocery shops, pump stations where the guys are buying their fuel from, and all those things, they're all going to flourish from the impact of these things.
A major strength of FireFly has been its ability to raise money. That said, money without a strong plan doesn't get you anywhere. FireFly has excelled on both accounts, and with the bonus of having extensive infrastructure, such as a decline in underground workings, they have put their development into overdrive. From resource delineation to resource expansion at depth, beyond the 900-meter level, the Ming mine is well on its way to being well understood, and what I think will be a very profitable mining operation in the future.
Good morning.
Going underground never gets old for me, especially as deep as we went this time. To be a kilometer under the surface is is crazy. I don't know how to put it any other way. It's kind of hard for me to even fathom what that actually means. But when it takes you a good, I don't know, it must have been 20 minutes to get down to the 900 level, then you start to realize how deep you are.
So in terms of geotech, so this is sort of around the 920 that the guy said, 920 level. That's 920 below RL. The surface is at 140 approximately. So it's 120 plus 140 is about 1,060 meters below the surface here. Here you can have a look. This is the Ming North. You can see pyrite, chalcopyrite here. You guys can have some chance to have a look. You guys can see how this is all. Here is about probably 4 meters, 4.5 meters through width. As you see, it dips about that 40 degrees. And this is Ming North, is one of the main lodes that we have in the VMS. Obviously, you guys, if you turn around, you can see that still there on the other side, on the other wall as well. You can see it there, so it maintains the thickness and the strike. But we got, this is what we call the Ming North, and what we're gonna see next is the Ming South. That is another lens. Yeah, so we're now in the A50 drill drift axis. That's A50 is 850 meters below the RL, and surface is about 140 meters. So we're pretty much like roughly 950 meters below the surface. And we're right now in the middle of the Ming South lode. This lode is dominated by pyrite, but it's got quite a bit of chalcopyrite, and it's quite gold rich, so it runs in between 2 and 5 grams gold. You can see here some of the samples. And you can see how it's very pyrite rich and very shiny. So this is part of the BMS in this case. Yeah, this BMS portion. You can see there's a bit of a strain here. There's a little bit of a structural overprint on that BMS, but it's still showing quite a nice width. And you can see here, there's quite a little chalcopyrite, and in this place probably the thickness is about 3.5 to 4 meters through width. So it is pretty good, pretty impressive ore body here.
Right. And you made this little safety algorithm.
Yeah, I think that was a bit more by chance, but now it's actually turning the favorite spot for all our visitors to come in and take a photo. If anybody wants a photo here, that's the photo booth. So you can see like the bronzy bits there, they're chalcopyrite, and then the more.
Look, I first started working underground about 30 years ago. And the world's changed a lot since then, because the safety has improved out of sight. Like, I've got no problems being underground. It's hard to believe we're 900 meters underground now, right? So, but it's very safe these days. But I remember I've worked underground all over Australia and even over in Alaska, and it's just an amazing experience to see this. Like, these are like highway tunnels everywhere. But, just underground, all in the name of getting copper out of the ground. That's amazing what goes into it. A lot of engineering, a lot of, lot of safety, a lot of work goes into mining these tunnels.
But this is, I guess, one of the things that we want to see here is you have a look how many strings here. This is what have excellent recoveries in the metallurgical, in the processing plant. The current test work that we release shows that this recovers up to 99%. So fantastic for flotation. We can see that it's a bit more foliation in this rock, and it's because the chloride alteration. A lot of the stringers now are being structurally overprinted by the foliation, and they follow a little bit the foliation. But this is what we look for a bulk mining scenario. So if we walk here, one of the things that we want to see here is the scale. So if you guys come this way and keep walking, you can still see all of it. Just keep looking, because it keeps going. Have a look at it. So this is not all low grade. Just have a think that this is all pure chalcopyrite. Chalcopyrite runs about 33% copper. So whenever you have 10% of chalcopyrite, you'll have at least 3% copper. Whenever you have 40% of chalcopyrite, you'll have 12% copper on it. So have a look at it, and then keep looking up. Is everywhere. Now pretty much we are in the center of the lower footwall mineralization. Even better here. This is a perfect example of the mineralization. So this is what we're looking at, this will be anywhere running around 5% copper or so. So a lot of people get excited with the VMS. This is what will get us excited. Bulk mining, plenty of chalcopyrite, easy metallurgy, beautiful ore body. Pure chalco, like just chloride alteration on pure chalco.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Make our way back to surface.
When it comes to gaining perspective on the realities of mining in the planet we live on, there is no substitute for going underground. We truly live on a spinning rock. Living and working above ground makes the underground world feel so foreign to me. It's the darkness, humidity, and the eerie silence and stillness in the moments that the equipment isn't running that just can't be imitated in my normal life. Not only this, but when you see the mineralization amongst a sea of waste rock, it gives me more perspective on why mining can be such a hard business to do well in. There's nothing like going underground, especially when you take the real plunge and go a kilometer below surface. That makes for a very real experience.
I'm Juan Gutierrez, Chief Geologist with FireFly. We're here in one of our core shacks where we're processing all the core of the... Currently we have a high level of production with 6 underground drill rigs. And there's another 4 on surface. But this is one of our processing facilities, and as we can see, we have all our technicians here. Right now, the first step in the core processing is to orient and mark up all the core, mark out the meter marks, and put an orientation line so we can collect structural data. And you can see the next stage will be the geological logging, and it's when the team collect all the structures, collect the lithology, alteration, and as well as select the samples that will be cut and sent to the lab for assays.
This is the depth?
Yeah, this is the depth. Obviously, the drillers put a core block with the depth, but this is usually a bit indicative. What we do when we get the core is the guys measure each of the runs and make sure that the SAT depth is marked in the meter marks. That's very important because obviously for the resource modeling and geology modeling, we need to have the SAT depths to manage, to model the ore body.
remember seeing it. I got to walk through it back in 2017.
You can see here like a lot of the drilling. This is our exploration drill drive. Right now it's all, phase 2 is all the way to here. So you can see this one is already a bit more advanced. But a lot of the drilling, some of them is being concentrated in the lower footwall to define a little bit, but a lot of the drilling like this one, is just when we drill through both. We drill first through the BMS, and then we get into that lower footwall material. Okay, so here in this, we got a couple of very good examples of our core, and there is beautiful examples of the two styles of mineralization. I guess in the BMS deposits, they got two main zones. One of the zones is the massive sulfides that we can see here, mainly dominated by pyrite and chalcopyrite. And then just below the massive sulfides, we have a zone with stringers of chalcopyrite and a bit of pyrite. And then the other main zone that we call the lower footwall zone is the stringer zone. This stringer zone is a strongly chloride altar, and that sits underneath the massive sulfide.
What is the difference between massive sulfide and a stringer zone?
So when you think about the BMS model, now you can think about real-life black smokers nowadays. So what is your black smoker would be the massive sulfides. So that massive sulfides, it will be when this hot fluids is coming through some extensional faults from probably a heat source that it could be at 5 or 6 kilometers or 2 kilometers down the surface intrusion, that bringing heat and some fluid. And this is getting into the seafloor. When it got into the seafloor, this fluid it's got lots of metals on it, and when it gets to the seafloor, is what it forms like a real-day black smokers. And you can see the black smokers is this dark, but all around it is metals. So all around it is a lot of sulfur, but a lot of copper, zinc, lead. So when you think about your black smoker, just think at the top is your massive sulfides, where all that fluid is very hot and contact with the seawater precipitates all the metals when it cools down. Now think that just below it, this is the piping. So that's where all the metal and all the fluids are coming through. And this is all very outer rocks. This originally was felsic, and you can see most of the minerals now have been replaced by chloride. So it's only chloride and quartz left here. So this is your seafloor massive sulfides forming. This is the piping feeding that sulfides. It is a slightly different mineralogy. We don't see a lot of pyrite here in the piping. We see more pyrite in the massive sulfides, and we see more chalcopyrite. That's kind of implies that this is a bit higher temperature and this is a bit lower temperature.
Access to cash is such a big deal in the junior mining industry, especially for these development companies. And really, if you look at the downfalls of what Rambler Metals and mining were back 5 years ago, it centered around access to cash. Like, that was very apparent. Now you have a new group. You have Steve Parsons. You have Darren. These guys have the access to cash. In Darren's case, they've got the leadership and the experience, geological experience, to put that forward and do things the way they should be done. Putting the money into the ground, understanding the mineralization as best they can. And I really have no doubt that they're going to be successful putting this thing into production. And you cannot say that about every group of mining financiers across the sector.
It's all well. Yeah.
It is good to meet you.
Darren, good to meet you too.
Darren, first, thank you so much for having us. It's been a great few days in and around site. It's been about 2 years now since you guys have taken over the project. Looking back, when you guys first decided to make the move to acquire it, has it lived up to what you expected?
Yeah, look, it's lived up to what we expected, and probably a bit more as well. Like, there's a lot of uncertainty when we got here in terms of would the ore body continue, and I think what we've shown now with the drill rigs comprehensively is it continues well beyond where the mining finished historically. So, this resource is going to get bigger and bigger. Yeah, it's really funny. Mining's sort of been in my family's blood. My mum's born in a mining town in Australia called Broken Hill, and my grandparents were born there and great-grandparents were born there. Been very familiar with mining, and then just loved geology as a kid, and got into it and always wanted to be in mining. So managed to get that way, and visited some amazing places, worked at amazing places and met some amazing people. So it's been a really great career.
Can you take us through what you guys have actually done? Like in compared to what was historically here, what you guys came in and actually have done and the amount of meters you've drilled so far?
Yeah, well look, one of the first things we did with our strategy coming in here was to show that the resource continued and it would grow and it'd be quite world class in scale. So first thing we did was put in the development crews, and we've mined about 2,000 metres of development, and that development is not to mine. We're not producing at the moment. It's to get the drill rigs in position to properly define the ore body. So we've done about 115,000 metres so far. Currently have 6 rigs underground, and the results will speak for themselves with our resource update that we've got coming out.
In terms of where we're situated, Baie Verte is considered by most to be the centre of mining in Newfoundland on the island portion. What's your gauge of the impact of FireFly and the Green Bay project on this surrounding area?
Yeah, look, it's absolutely massive, and I mean the best way that I can gauge that is from when we came here after the insolvency, and a lot of people in this town were hurt, a lot of people were owed money, a lot of people lost jobs, and it was a pretty dark period of time for the town. But I guess when we came in, at first there was a bit of scepticism. Once we managed to spend a lot of time with people in the community and explaining our plans and how we were going to do things very differently, people began to understand the vision that we had for this place. And then once we started actually doing what we said we were going to do, I think we've built up a lot of trust, and then that's manifested into the excitement in the community because they can see the direction we're taking this project.
If you were to outline the next 6 to 12 months, can you highlight the catalysts that investors can look forward to?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of good catalysts coming up. So, the key ways that we're really going to add value to this project are increasing the resource to start off with, and that'll be all the work that the 6 drill rigs have really accomplished over the last year. And what we'll see in that update is continued growth down plunge of the Ming ore body, but we'll also see a real increase in the confidence in the resource, so we'll significantly increase the measured and indicated. Now that'll feed into a mining study, and that'll come out in the first quarter of next year, and that's the first real opportunity that people will get to see the economics of what we've got here, and that'll be both the startup case and potentially optionality around a much larger scale operation down the track. And I think it's going to really surprise a lot of people in terms of the NPVs that we're going to end up with. When we bought this project, it was only 56 square kilometres of ground, and we've done a couple of key deals with a few junior companies, and we're now up to 346 square kilometres because we truly believe, and I know as a geologist, that these styles of deposits are never orphans. They never occur as one-offs, they're always clusters, and we know that because there's 8 historic mines on our leases that were mined mostly in the 1960s and 70s. So we know there's other VMSs here. We're going to actively explore them. We've currently got 3 rigs on surface doing that, and I think our investors will get an update on pretty soon on what we're looking at in terms of our exploration success from a regional point of view, because that will have a massive impact. Because imagine if we could discover another one of these, it would just be an absolute game changer for the company and this region. The great thing about operating in a province like Newfoundland is that all the ingredients are there to make this a really clean and sustainable operation. You just look out of this workshop and you can see the hydro power lines running through the property. We're investigating all sorts of technologies to reduce our carbon footprint at the moment. So, we're taking that very, very seriously. And on the community front, we understand that we don't have an operation without the community support. So, we're trying to foster that as much as we can. We're trying to be part of the community and really build up the prosperity for the entire district.
When it comes to cycles, timing is everything. A couple years ago, precious metals were the place to be, and that call has paid off. Now I believe the next big move is setting up in copper. The valuations speak for themselves. Across the board, good copper projects are trading at fractions of their underlying value. That kind of disconnect doesn't last forever. It doesn't mean tomorrow, But much like gold and silver 2 years ago, I think the market will eventually turn to copper. The drivers are lining up. Demand for AI, electrification, and the green movement is undeniable. Add in the backdrop of renewed quantitative easing from the Fed, and profits-chasing narratives will spill naturally over into copper, without taking away from the bullish outlook on precious metals. But there's something critical to remember. Not every development company makes it. Many never see the full value, even in strong metals markets, simply because they can't reach a construction decision fast enough. That's why I look for companies that can realistically advance to production during the cycle. Those are the ones that get noticed, and often command a premium. Jurisdiction is also more important than ever. Permitting and social acceptance can make or break a project. That's why Tier 1 jurisdictions stand out, and Newfoundland is a clear example. Its history shows strong support for mining, especially in the Bayvert area. The region is thirsty for revival, and the next generation needs these jobs if they want to stay and raise families close to home. And that's what makes FireFly's Green Bay project so compelling. The quality of the deposit speaks for itself. It's already been mined successfully and sits in one of the most mining-friendly parts of Canada. But standing here now, 8 years since I was last in this region, it's impossible not to see how many things have changed. The conversations feel different. The optimism feels real. And behind every data point, every forecast, there are people. People who've weathered the quiet years, who've kept the lights on in their towns, who've waited for a reason to believe again. The team at FireFly isn't just building a mine. They're helping rebuild the rhythm, the connection between resource and community, between work and home. Because mining, when done right, doesn't just extract value from the ground. It creates it. It builds schools, supports families, and gives younger generations a reason to stay. The land hasn't changed much. The cliffs, the bays, the wind, but the sense of purpose has. And as the next cycles take shape, it feels like Newfoundland is ready to rise with it. Because in this business, timing is everything. And sometimes timing brings you back to where it all began.